Hi, sweeties. How are you doing? Welcome to Seminary. Thank you so much for the support. Hope you all are doing great. This video is like rich with so much knowledge. And I am going to say this because this is talking about reparation. Why is it that each time they talk about reparation for Black people, a lot of people get pissed off? Some people are mad. Some are asking, why do we need to pay you reparations? But you were not the ones that were enslaved, or we were not even around the time that your ancestors were enslaved and all that. Now I am going to say this: you are still enjoying all the things Black people's ancestors built for you. You all are still enjoying all of them. And each time we talk about reparations, some people are asking what reparation is: to repair, to fix. Not just slavery, everything they have done so bad to Black people. They need to repair all of them. And each time I see Latinos, because they are not exempted from asking why they said they do not support reparations. Even Asians, majority of them said they do not support reparations. And when you ask them, why is it that you do not support reparations? They ask you, are we going to get the same thing? And you tell them no. You say, why will it just be a group of people that will get that and we will not get it? So it means they will be richer than us. So it is from that being richer than us, or from that being better than us, they get jealous that your world is about to change. That's why they are not supporting reparations. But you know what? Let's get into this video.
Reparations because you didn't do it, but you didn't mind paying reparations for the Japanese or the indigenous, and you didn't do that either. This is why it's a flawed argument to say that, okay? Because it's just showing racism. It's just showing your racism. That's all it's showing. Or it's showing your ignorance. Reparations, the United States has already paid reparations to groups, okay? And just to be noted, Black Americans also pay federal taxes too. Okay? So Black Americans did not set up those internment camps. Yeah, those internment camps for the Japanese Americans, yeah, we didn't set those up. That wasn't our system. We didn't do that. But Black Americans pay into the federal government. And so Black Americans help pay those reparations. Also, with the indigenous, Black Americans didn't sign those treaties. We didn't do that. But Black Americans pay into the federal government taxes, just like everyone else. And reparations are paid through federal taxes. So we didn't do it, but we helped fund it, the reparations for the indigenous. Now, when it comes to Black Americans and you saying, well, we didn't do it. Well, we didn't do it. Okay. Black Americans didn't do any of the other stuff either. Yet reparations got paid. Furthermore, people continuously believe, I'm not sure why you believe this, but you believe that Black Americans don't pay taxes. Black Americans pay taxes and have always paid taxes. As a matter of fact, we pay more taxes. And let me just go backwards and say that a lot of the taxes that Black Americans have paid over time did not come back into our communities in the first place. It all went to white communities. Yeah, and a lot of that, even today, that happens because, people withheld tax dollars from HBCUs. By the billions. And they were giving most of that money to the white institutions. Okay? Yeah, and then they had to double back and give the money back that was owed to a lot of the HBCUs. See? So anyway, where was I? Black Americans pay taxes. So therefore, we will also be putting in on the reparations that we get. Not just you. The same way we put in on reparations that the indigenous got, and the same way we put in reparations on what the Japanese got. But people seem to forget that. Just toss that out. When it comes to Black Americans, it's the whole, I didn't do it. Well, Black folks didn't do it either. Yet Black folks paid two groups. Actually 3, white folks too. We paid white folks too. So there is a double standard when it comes to Black Americans getting reparations, politically, socially, all around. There's a double standard. If reparations is a matter of justice, right? What matters then is the government correcting a wrong. This has been shown when the American government tried to correct that wrong with the Japanese Americans, the indigenous, and even white Americans, because they got reparations. Yeah. But they got reparations when they should not have. But whenever we talk about Black Americans getting it, all of a sudden, oh, it cost this. We didn't do it. So yeah, if you don't believe, if you're Black or white or red or yellow, if you don't believe that Black Americans deserve reparations, then you lack an understanding of history. You may have a racial bias, or you're just simply playing politics. You're simply a walking contradiction. You don't want to pay reparations.
Last night I couldn't sleep, and I watched the new Jubilee episode with Amanda Seales. One Black radical versus 20 Black conservatives, and I have thoughts. First, I just feel for Amanda Seales. I don't even know how she sat through that. You know, as a gay person, when I watch the LGBTQ plus community attack each other and divide us, it's painful. So I can't imagine what it was like for anybody who's Black or African American to watch that happening. But they talked about reparations, and I want to chime in on that. Nobody asked my opinion, but I want to share. First and foremost, I 100% agree. Black people, African Americans in this country deserve reparations, and here's why. We know that Black people were kidnapped from countries in Africa, brought here, and enslaved for hundreds of years by white people, and this country was literally built on the backs of the slaves that were brought here. Not by choice, they weren't paid, and they weren't even considered people. But there's this whole argument of, well, all the people that were involved are not here anymore, so why should we pay reparations? I'm going to tell you why. Just because slavery ended in 1865 in this country, which also a bunch of white people tried to fight to keep it, so don't forget that. Slavery actually never really ended in 1865 because this country was founded on slavery. And so the ideology of slavery was actually embedded into our culture from the very beginning. And so what happened was that same ideology was that racism was baked into all of the systems and structures in this country to advantage white people and to disadvantage and oppress Black people, African American people. Those same structures, by the way, those same systems are being upheld by people today. And it was upheld by people in the past couple of decades. So it never went away. But that's why we have systemic racism. So if you think about like healthcare, housing, education, Black people have historically been denied access to things like education, or they experience biases in things like healthcare. You know, Black women are more likely to have fatalities in childbirth than white women in hospitals. Or we look at housing, where we saw redlining, where either Black people were prevented from moving into certain neighborhoods. Here in Detroit, we have a wall that represents that redlining that was meant to keep Black people out of the suburbs. And redlining also contributed to the lowering property values of Black neighborhoods because people were forced to move into areas together, which also contributes to taxes that go towards schools. So the higher the property values, the more money people got, which impacted the education system. And we look at employment. Resume racism has been consistent for the past 30 years. Just a Black sounding name alone will lead to less callbacks than an identical resume with a white sounding name. Now, I'm not saying that Black people are victims. I'm not saying the African American community are victims. I'm saying these are real world consequences from the past. So yes, all the people who were directly involved in the beginning during slavery are no longer here. But you know who is still here? The US fucking government. And our government has an obligation to protect everyone on this land, in this country, everyone. And our government not only failed Black people and African American people, but they also capitalized on it. And for the Black and African American community, this also is something that permeates through the communities because they have higher mental health challenges when it comes to systemic racism and discrimination. You know, July is Minority Mental Health Awareness Month because minority groups like the Black community, African American community, experience mental health challenges and even physical challenges, higher blood pressure, diabetes, heart conditions, because of systemic racism. All while being denied access to things that everybody else, white people and everyone else, have had access to, didn't have to think about. So yes, the US government absolutely needs to write a check, get people paid, and help uplift the community that they oppressed.
Hey y'all, how y'all doing? Y'all all right? I'm good. Look at here, look. I got something for y'all to watch. Hold on a minute.
You better turn your radio back.
What do you think about these Black Lives Matter that they want to be paid for being what is it, slaves and all
reparations?
that? Yeah, there.
Are you talking about reparations? Well, I heard they passed in North Carolina.
Yes.
But it was
What?
It was a small little town in North Carolina that passed reparations for whoever's over there. I'm sure they'll try to do something out here in California. I think they already actually got a little board going that they're going to start looking into it. So
yeah, and that's when we, the Raza, need to step up, protest, and I'm talking major, and turn around and tell them, no, nobody getting reparations until the Native Americans and the Mexicans get ours first. We've been going through this crap a lot longer, so I don't want to hear it. Because it's not fair, dog. How are you going to give a bunch of money to a specific group, dog? This is the United States, a melting pot. How are you going to give it to a specific group?
because right now they've got the white people with so much guilt. It was your parents. And it goes back to this. That would be like me going back and talking about, hey, fool, you busted on my homie. You told me, hey, but then
No, that wouldn't even be like that. That's not even close.
Why?
It'd be like, hey, fool, your great-great-great-grandfather busted on my great-great-great-grandmother.
But that's that's what I'm getting at with that. Our stuff with our war wasn't that long ago. So if they can bring something up from 200 years ago, shit, this should be worse. You better turn your radio back.
What do you think about these Black?
But who supports y'all need? He's so for real. Mejora la raza. I'm Tioco. Bye, y'all.
Hello. I'm going to go ahead and assume that this question is not genuine solely based on the other comments that you have left. However, I would love, nonetheless, an opportunity to try to educate you or anyone else watching this who believes that paying reparations to Black people is somehow this grandiose, asinine idea. Firstly, your comment signals to me that you are not on an active anti-racism journey. Because if you were truly aware of just how deep the systematic racism is in the US and how Black people today can still be feeling the effects of slavery without ever having been enslaved, you would be angry. You would want to do something about it. And with that knowledge, you would absolutely be on board for reparations, no question. And I understand not being on board with reparations because there was a time when I wasn't on board with reparations. Several years ago, I would have acknowledged how egregious slavery was. I would have acknowledged that I have white privilege. I would have agreed that racism still exists and affects Black people today. But where I drew the line was reparations. My thinking back then was, why should I, as a white person who was never an enslaver, have to pay taxes or whatever the system would be to Black people today who were never enslaved? But the reason that I had that stance was out of sheer ignorance. It was because I was missing some very crucial pieces to the puzzle and couldn't see the whole picture. I wasn't educated enough on how deeply slavery has impacted generation after generation and is still impacting Black people today. And once I gained that knowledge, learning from Black people, might I add, something clicked and now I'm on board with reparations. Not so fun fact, did you know that DC enslavers got reparations after the emancipation? Yeah, $300 per person to offset their loss of enslaved peoples. So post-slavery, there were some white people getting paid, but not the Black people who were enslaved. Also, not so fun fact, did you know that white families have 10 times the amount of wealth as Black families. And that wealth gap is not because white people are smarter, it's not because white people work harder, and it's not because white people picked themselves up by their bootstraps and Black people didn't. It's because throughout history, white people and white families have been allowed to accrue wealth, while Black people have been stripped of it. Reparations is a necessary and crucial piece of healing that is hundreds of years overdue. And not just for descendants of enslaved peoples, but for all of us.
This is all I got from this video, and I am going to say this. Why is it that each time, black people talk about reparations, so many people are mad? Very pissed, especially people that are not Black, because I am a firm believer that that reparations should be paid straight up. And I can't count how many times, if I have how many videos on my channel, I am sure like 200 or 3 or more may have talked about reparations, because most times, even when my video is not talking about reparations and others, sometimes I connect it to talk about reparations. If you are alive and you do not think that there is need to pay Black people reparations, you are part of the problem. And some people, I remember back then when reparation, I think some years ago, one day you wake up and white people will come with their own troubles and all that about reparations and all that. I remember a white woman whisperer that her channel was taken down over what she said and all that. She was a firm believer of reparations, and she kept saying, why do you think Black people do not deserve reparations? And each time we talk about reparations, they think it's just all about slavery. No, it's beyond slavery. So there is need to repair, to fix. That is what it means, reparations, to repair, to fix the things that were done to Black people, all the things that were even taken away from them without returning them and all that. Do you know? Each time I talk about that, I don't know, I get emotional. I talked about that story some days back, but I don't want to talk about it again. So I will continue. I cannot count how many Black wealth that were taken away from them, and to this very moment they do not have even those they landed property. That's why when when he sang about the 40 acres and a mule, I knew what he was talking about, for those that care about Black history and all that. Yeah, I have seen so many white people, and not some, majority white people do not believe there is need for reparations because they fear that Black people will be richer than them. I know that is their fear, but you have no choice. Asians get really mad. Why would Black people pay reparations? You have no choice too. Latinos, I have seen so many videos, and they are like, will they also be paid? Why would you be paid? Are you a descendant of slave? Why would you be paid reparations? Because I feel like majority of them is just jealous that Black people will get the money. And I was talking with one of my friends sometime, and guess what he was telling me? He said that even if they pay the reparations, that Black people will still be, they will spend the money in a day and still be poor. I said, let them pay the money first. I told him, because we were going back and forth. And then I know he said that let me get back at her. Let me just blow hard with this. I know even if they pay you guys that money, you guys will still be poor. Pay Black people the money first. If they decide to go poor, that is fine, but pay them the money. Let me see how many people you will still see close to you. Majority of them will even leave United States of America. So they are jealous that if they pay the money, that you will be richer, you will be doing better. You won't be in the same class as them. Your level will absolutely out-level them. So all these things are the things that they are scared of. And I remember I have said this in several times, but let me still say it again. Each time I said that Racism is something that I do not see white women, most especially, and white men, patriarchy and all that. I do not see them looking for a way to dismantle the system. It's only black people actually that is fighting for that system to be dismantled, and that is absolutely true. Why am I saying this? I am saying this because these people are feeling like if we dismantle the system, who else are we going to oppress? So that is, each time they feel like black people are sprouting out, doing better, you know what comes to their mind? What comes to their mind is, what if they get better than us and we become the second class citizen in their own world? You know, to them, they say that they are the superior. So when you become richer than them, they won't be the superior anymore. Each time I hear that superiority, I don't know what it makes me. It really, superiority. How? Who actually started? That is one of the reasons why. Okay, somebody said if there is something they need to cancel forever, the person said whiteness, and I concur to that. You see, whiteness, there is need to relinquish. Remove. Let's know what is bothering us, because that whiteness is doing so much problem. If there is even how there will be like a thunder that will change everybody's color to the same. Let's see how. Let's know what we are suffering again, because it won't be blackness and whiteness, and it won't be racism again. It may actually be tribalism, or maybe something else. But it won't be this hierarchy of a thing or superiority of a thing. I'm sure they will be different. I will draw the curtain here. I am blabbing, but not that I am not all that blabbing.